All right, in this lesson, we're going to be talking about multi-step inequalities. So a few things to remember. One, and the main important thing with inequalities is you need to remember that when you multiply or divide by a negative, that you need to flip the inequality sign. So when you multiply or divide by a negative, and normally that's in that last step, when you multiply or divide by a negative, and when I say a negative, I mean a negative number, you're going to flip that inequality sign. So if it's greater than, it becomes less than. If it's less than, it becomes greater than. If it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, then you flip it as well. You just make sure you keep the equal to if it was originally in the problem. The other thing that you need to remember, especially now that we're doing multi-step inequalities, is you need to remember your steps to solve when we did equations. So when we did equations, if you remember, we did the don't call me after midnight. And that phrase, don't call me after midnight, told me to distribute, combine like terms. So distribute starts with D, combine like terms, move the variable, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And you're going to apply those same steps. The only thing that you need to remember is that on this last step right here, that's when we multiply or divide. If it's a negative, we flip the inequality sign. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some examples, and I'm actually going to show you how to check your answer in Desmos. So I will be expecting you to show the work, but of course you can check your work and check your answer that you got. So just like we did before, we're going to draw that line down the inequality sign as if it were an equal sign. And we're going to do don't call me after midnight. So remember, the first one is distribute. We don't have any parentheses, so we're done there. When we combine like terms, we only combine the left side with the left side and the right side with the right side. And of course, the left and the right are going to depend on the inequality sign, just like it did with the equal sign. So if I see I do not have any like terms here, and I don't have any like terms on this side, so we're skipping that step. Now, for the next step, we need to move the variable. We are going to move the variable here. So if you notice, on the right-hand side, I have negative 5x. I need to move that variable to the left side so we have one variable in this problem. And in order to move that variable, we are going to add the 5x over. Why? Because it's a negative 5x. So when we add it over, that's going to produce 18x. So when we do 8x and 8x and positive 5x, that's going to produce 13x. Okay, so with that 13x, we're going to bring down our minus 6, and that's still going to be less than or equal to negative 3. All right, so now that we've moved the variable, we need to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So this minus 6 right here, we need to add that over, and we're adding that over, and we're adding it back to the right-hand side. Okay, so at this point, we have 13x left on the left side is less than or equal to, and then we have negative 3 plus 6, that's going to give me positive 3. And then on the last step, we are going to divide by 13. Now, this is where I ask myself, do I flip the sign? So the number that I'm dividing by is positive. So we have a positive 13. So since we're dividing by positive 13, the inequality sign stays the same. So since my inequality sign stays the same, we don't have to worry about anything further. We just say x is less than or equal to 3 over 13, and we're done there. Okay. Now, I can check my answer for this in Desmos, and what I'm going to do with that is when I pull Desmos up, I'm going to type it just like I had the problem. So it was 8x minus 6, and the inequality signs are in the keyboard, so we have less than or equal to, and then we have negative 5x minus 3. Now, what you're going to be looking for is, I see that it's crossing the x-axis right here, and that number that they give me is 0.231. Well, if I divide 3 and 13, I should see that that is 0.231 rounded. And I'm shading to the left side. So when I'm shading to the left, that means less than. And of course, my line here that it's going vertical is a solid line. So that means equal to. So it's shading to the left, so it's less than, and a solid, so that means equal to. So we did, in fact, get that right. All right, so looking at number 2. So again, we're going to do don't call me after midnight. All right, so I see that I do have parentheses this time, so I'm going to take this 2, and I'm going to distribute that 2 to the 3x and that 2 to the 8. So we're going to say 2 times 3x, and then we're going to say 2 times 8. So that's going to give me 6x plus 16, and I'm going to bring down my 4x, is less than 3x plus 10 minus 8. So we've distributed. Now we need to combine like terms. So again, we only combine the left side with the left side and the right side with the right side. Okay, so when I look at the left side, I should be able to see that I have a 4x and a 6x. So when I combine 4x and 6x, that's going to give me 10x. Plus 16 is less than, and then on the right side, I have a 10x or a 10 and a negative 8. So I'm also going to combine those and make that a positive 2. Now, this third step, the move the variable, is the one that seems to be the issue each time we're solving, whether it's an equation or inequality. So when I look, and if I look down and I draw that line down the inequality sign, I should be able to see that on this side, on the left, I have a positive 10x, but on the right side, I have a positive 3x. I don't want that variable on the right side. I need to move it over here. So in order to move that, we're going to take that 3x, and we are going to either add or subtract it. Now, since it's positive, we're going to subtract the 3x over, and that's going to combine with the 10x now. So 10x minus 3x is 7x, plus 16 is less than positive 2. All right, so now we're going to add or subtract. So I have 16. We want to move that back to the right. It's a positive 16, so we're going to subtract 16. All right, so that gives me 7x, and then I have 2 minus 16 is negative 14. And my last step is to multiply or divide, and this is where I need to ask myself, do I flip my sign? And I actually made a boo-boo here. That shouldn't be an equal sign. That should be a less than sign. Now, for this one, I have a positive 7 that I'm dividing by. So since it's a positive 7, the inequality stays the same. We only flip it when the number that we're multiplying or dividing, that's with the x, is negative. So we're going to say the inequality stays the same here. All right, so since it stays the same, we now are going to simplify. So x is less than negative 2. And again, I can put this into Desmos exactly like it is and check. So if it's less than, we should be shaded to the left. And this one should have a dashed line. And as the reason it should be dashed is because there's no equal to. So I'm going to go put this in Desmos. So in Desmos, I have the original problem was, so we got 4x. We're going to type it just like we see it. Now remember, when you put these in Desmos, no matter if it's an equation or an inequality, it always needs to be an x. So 2 parentheses 3x plus 8, close that parentheses, is less than 3x plus 10 minus 8. So if you notice, we're crossing at negative 2, so we got the right number. It's shading to the left side of the line, and it's dashed this time. So you should see the dashed line, which means it's not equal to. It's only a solid line when it's equal to. If it doesn't have an equal to, then it's going to be a dashed line. So that is correct. All right, so looking at number 3. So once again, we go through our process. Don't call me after midnight. Okay, so when we look at this, there's no distributive property because there's no parentheses. So combining like terms. So I look at the left side, there's nothing to combine. I look at the right side, there's also nothing to combine. But we do need to move the variable. I should be able to see that I have a variable on the right side that I need to move back to the left and get one variable. So it's a positive 10x. We're going to subtract 10x. All right, so we got 8x minus 10x is going to give me negative 2x. Bring down the minus 3, and that's greater than 7. So now we're going to add or subtract. So we have minus 3. We're going to add that to the right side. And now that I've added that to the right side, that's going to give me positive 10. I'm going to bring down the minus 2x. All right, and then my last step is to multiply or divide. So we're dividing by negative 2. So this is where we need to flip our sign. So we have a negative 2, and since my 2 is negative, that means we need to flip the inequality. So when I say flip my inequality, right now it's greater than. If we read it left to right, we're saying x is greater than negative 5, but we want to flip it, so we flip it now, so it becomes less than. So x is less than negative 5. Now, if we go and graph this, since it's less than, we should see it shaded to the left, and there's no equal to, so it should be dashed. Okay? And we would know we flipped it right if that's what we saw on the graph itself. So again, come to Desmos. We're going to do 8x minus 6 is, that was number 3. Let's go back. So 8x minus 3 is greater than 10x plus 7. So even though it says greater than in the original problem, once we solved it, you should see that it's shading to the left because we had to flip the sign because it became less than. So we have negative 5, which is what we got. It's shaded to the left side of the line, and it's dashed, which means it's not equal to. It's just less than. So that is correct. All right, so for our last example, I have don't call me after midnight again. So we do need to distribute. Remember, we do not combine these two together before we distribute. When we distribute, we are going to distribute this 4 first. So that 4 is going to get multiplied to negative 2 and to 9. So we got 4 times negative 2, and we got 4 times 9. So that's going to become negative 8 plus 36. We're going to go ahead and bring that 6 down. Is greater than or equal to x plus 2 minus 7x, because there's no more parentheses. And then we're going to combine our like terms. So on the left side of the inequality, we're going to combine what we have alike, which is 6 and 36. They're both constants. So we have negative 8x, and then that's going to be 36 and 6 is going to give me 42. Is greater than or equal to. Now let's look at the right side. So on the right side, I have x and negative x. So just remember, if I have x, that's technically a 1x with a positive 1 in front of it. So if I combine that, that's going to be negative 6x plus 2. All right, so now we need to move that variable. So once again, I have a variable on the right-hand side. So that visual, we have that negative 6. So we are going to take that negative 6x, and we want to move it to the left side. And we're going to do that. It's positive. We're going to move it to the other side, and we're going to add 6x. All right, so we add negative 8x and 6x is negative 2x. Bring down that 42. That's going to be greater than or equal to positive 2. All right, and now we're just going to add, subtract. So we're going to move that 42 back to the right. So we're going to subtract 42. All right, so we combine that. So 2 and negative 42 is going to give me negative 40. And bring down the negative 2x. And then the last step is to multiply or divide. Now we're going to divide by negative 2. So this again, where we ask ourselves, we have a negative 2 that we're dividing by at the very last step. So because that 2 is negative, we're going to flip the inequality. All right, so since we're flipping the inequality here, that's going to become, right now is greater than or equal to, is going to become less than or equal to, and negative 40 divided by negative 2 is going to be positive 20. So it should be shaded to the left because it's less than, and it should be a solid line this time because it's equal to. So remember that line underneath it means equal to. All right, so I can check my answer. And no, it's not always going to be less than. These examples did always turn out, either it was originally less than or it flipped to less than, but it's not always going to be less than. So I'm typing it in just like I see it originally. And even though it's all shaded right here, if I zoom out, I should see that it does cross at 20. It's going to the left side of the line, and it's a solid line vertically, so that means equal to. Okay, so you're still going to use your same rules of don't call me after midnight. The only difference is when you get to that last step, if you multiply or divide by the negative, you have to flip the inequality sign. Okay, so just to kind of keep in mind as well, just as a review from the other notes, when you have less than or equal to, so this is less than because you read it left to right. That's going to be a dash line because there's no equal to. This is also less than, but this is going to be a solid line because it is equal to. Just like if you do greater than or equal to. So with greater than, that's going to just be a dash line because there's no line to say it's equal to. And then for this greater than, that's greater than or equal to because does have the line, so that's going to be solid. So just some things to remember, especially when you're checking your stuff in Desmos.